As we continue on in our lesson on maintaining Active Directory, we're going to go into a sub-lesson called Managing AD Components. We're going to look at taking Active Directory offline and performing tasks like defragmentation. We're going to take a look at Active Directory snapshots. I want to take a snapshot of Active Directory. Maybe I'm going to make some changes and I want to make sure I have a snapshot of Active Directory before doing so. If we lose a domain controller or have to force a domain controller out of commission, we have to do what's called some metadata cleanup. And these are the different components that we're going to look at managing. Snapshots. What they do is make a copy of the database, the directory services database, at a specific point in time. Most of the tasks that we're going to perform in this sublesson are done through the ntdsutil.exe. To create a snapshot, you're going to open up the command prompt with elevated permissions, and then you're going to type in ntdsutil.exe. You're then going to type in the following 5 commands: activate instance ntds, snapshot, telling it what it's going to do next, create the snapshot, then we can list them out, and then we can quit out. And at that point, we've created our snapshot. So if you want to access the snapshot you just created, you'll use the ntdsutil mount command. Then you'll use the DSA main to access it. Then you actually peruse through the contents using the Active Directory users and computers. When you're finished perusing through it, you use the ntdsutil dismount command to dismount that snapshot. This does not replace the backups that we just talked about. Often I see here people, well, I did a snapshot and then I made a bunch of changes and I hosed my ADDS. These are not to replace the backups that are used to recover a corrupt or a deleted Active Directory database environment. And our next option is to perform what's called Active Directory metadata cleanup. So let's say a domain controller crashed. Now you have to forcibly remove that domain controller from the forest. You'll also have to determine if it had any FSMA roles, and you'll have to move those FSMA roles to another DC before deleting or performing the metadata cleanup. To complete the metadata cleanup, you're going to perform some steps using the GUI or using the ntdsutil. The GUI involves going into the Active Directory users and computers and removing the domain controller from the domain controller's container. You'll also have to go into the Active Directory sites and services and remove the domain controller site objects in there as well. You can also use ntdsutil.exe at an elevated command prompt. You'll type in metadata cleanup. You'll connect to the server, specify an online domain controller, not the one that crashed. You'll then type in list domain, and then you're going to choose a domain containing the DC you want to toast. You'll list the sites and then select the site that contain the DC. You'll then list the servers and then select the server name of the DC that you want to remove, and then enter quit to exit out of ntdsutil. So you can perform this metadata cleanup using the GUI or using ntdsutil.exe. Some of the tasks that we want to perform can't be done with Active Directory Online. Specifically, we want to work with some of the files. Maybe we want to defragment the files associated with ADDS. By default, the files associated with Active Directory are stored in the system root /ntds directory. You can change that during the install. And in order to perform some of these tasks offline, you need to take the DC offline by starting it in DSRM mode, which is the Directory Services Recovery mode. If you're going to do this, you want to make sure you have multiple domain controllers, because if this is in recovery mode, it's not going to respond to client requests. If I have a single domain controller and I do this, we're going to have some very unhappy users. So make sure you have multiple DCs deployed before taking a domain controller offline. Alternatively, we can stop the ADDS service instead of starting it in DSRM mode. This is called restartable ADDS, and that was introduced in Windows Server 2012. And the benefit of this, we can perform tasks much more quickly, and it minimizes the downtime. And one of the tasks that we're going to perform after taking AD offline is called offline defragmentation. And this is really helpful if you've had a lot of updates and deletes and writes to your Active Directory database. And what we'll do is we'll take it offline and we're going to compact it to return unused space to the file system. And we can do this by going into Server Manager and stopping the ADDS service within Services. It's going to prompt you if you want to stop any additional services. I believe there are about 4 of them. We'll say yes to that. We're then going to pop into the ntdsutility.exe command in an elevated command prompt, and we're going to perform these 6 steps here. We're going to activate instance ntds. We'll type in the word files. It'll change our prompt. We'll type in compact to C:, and then we're going to type in integrity. And then we're going to copy or compacted ntds.dit file. That's the primary file you're concerned with when it comes to ADDS. We'll copy the defragged version of ntds.dit to the production area, and then to clean up any logs that were created, we'll run the delete command. And then we'll go back into Server Manager and restart the ADDS service, which will also restart the required services. Let's jump out and open up an elevated command prompt and take a look at how we perform ADDS defragmentation offline. Our first stop is at Server Manager. We're going to go to Tools, and inside of Tools we have Services. And in here we see the Active Directory domain services. Remember, if you have a single domain controller, be careful what time you're shutting this down. We have multiple domain controllers, and I'm on an image that no one's touching except for me, so I'm safe. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to do a stop here. And it's telling me, by the way, dude, I'm also going to stop the Kerberos Key Distribution Center, or KDC, Intersite Messaging, DNS Server, and DFS Replication. Are you okay with this? Well, I kind of have to be. So I'm going to go ahead and click yes. And it's going to take its time and shut down each of these services in order for us to complete this defragmentation. So we'll leave that over on the side here. Now we're going to go down and we're going to right click and we're going to open a command prompt as an admin. That is critical. There's been several times where people have reached out to me, Brian, these commands aren't working. It's because they're using this command prompt without admin versus this command prompt with admin. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up with admin permissions. And I'm just going to move this window down in the center a little bit. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit because you know me. I like to cut and paste to avoid the fat fingering. I can get away with NTDS util, I think. There we go. We have the NTDS util prompt, so that's a good sign. Now I'm going to start a little bit of cut and pasting. I'm going to go ahead and use the activate instance NTDS. And I'm going to copy that and paste that. And notice it says the active instance is set to NTDS. I think I can get away with typing the word files. I did. Notice the prompt changes to file maintenance. I can get away with compact to C:\\. So it's going to take the information in the current ntds.dit file and compress it or compact it and defragment it and store it in the C drive. So I'll go ahead and hit enter, and your C is going through the defragmentation status, and it completed very nicely, and we're back with the file maintenance option. We're now going to type in integrity as another command, and it's going to run an integrity check. We're good with that. Comes back with good news, and it gives us the file maintenance command prompt. So at this point, we've done what we need to do in here, so we're going to quit out of here and quit out of here. Bring us back to the DOS prompt, and then we're going to copy C:\. Let me get my cursor out of the way, \ntds.dit, and we're going to bring that to the live location, if you will, and that's in Windows \ntds.dit. So C:\ntds.dit, which is the new flavor that we just created, the compact flavor, to C:\Windows ntds.dit. We'll hit enter. It says, hey, there's one there. Do you want to overwrite that? We will say yes to that. And then we've copied that over there. Now, if we want to clean up the log files that were created during the defrag process, we use a delete command, C:\Windows \ntds /star.log, and that will clean up those log files that were created during the defrag process. We need to do one more step, and that's to restart the Active Directory services. So we'll minimize this. We'll right click and we'll start. It's going to start not only ADDS but also DNS, the KDC, and the other services that were stopped when we stopped the ADDS service. So this is how we manage the Active Directory components, including how to create snapshots using NTDS util, and then performing the metadata cleanup using NTDS util as well. And then we talked about having to take it offline in a couple different ways, using the DSRM mode, or if you're running Windows Server 2012 or higher, you can use what's called the restartable ADDS server. That's what we did. And we looked at the steps necessary to complete the offline defragmentation.